Today we meet Chris Miller as he shares his journey from finance and advisory to becoming a prominent figure in the hospitality industry. He discusses the risks he took, the founding of White Rabbit Projects and the challenges faced in the restaurant world. Chris explains his absolute passion for delivering an amazing customer experience, the need for a strong work ethic and the innovative approaches he's now taking in the wellness world, where he has just launched the largest sauna in the UK. His insights provide valuable lessons for aspiring entrepreneurs and those interested in the culinary world. I hope you enjoy. Morning, Chris. Welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. Good to see you.
So we are going to spend a lovely Friday morning talking all about hospitality and your history of getting here. You've got some incredible brands in your portfolio, but like we always start with the podcast, it'd be wonderful if you could just give our listeners a sort of a journey of how you've got here, because what I always love about this is people see you with this grand title of CEO of this and founder of that, and they don't understand that one day you risked everything and started this business and you've got a past to it. And I think it's good for people to be able to piece that together to realise wherever they are with their career now will not be where they end up at the end. So if you could share that with us, Chris, that'd be a great way to kick off.
Sure. I definitely had to take some wild risks along the way. Well, I guess if I go all the way back, I studied finance and economics at university. So, and went naturally from there into the evil world of finance, and corporate finance, learning to buy and sell companies, and moved into the world of private equity. But this was around the time of the financial crash. So we were in a private equity company that had lots of fancy investments like Aston Martin and Grosvenor House Apartments and things like that. That when the financial crisis hit, it was disaster.
It was a bit choppy, yes.
A little bit choppy, so we were fund without any money. So we started doing some advisory, and we advised Nick Jones, the founder of Soho House, on the sale of Soho House to Hugh Kuiper, Ron Burkle's entity. And I had the pleasure of working on that deal, and I got to know Nick Jones very well through the deal. And when it went through, he invited me in-house to become commercial director for the group to help with their growth of clubs and restaurants around the world. And I think that's where I sort of found the world of hospitality and truly fell in love with it.
So it wasn't a passion. It wasn't like you thought, I'd love to get into that sector. You just thought you'd go on that journey from economics into finance and see where it took you.
No, and in fact, you're going to slightly ruin the romance of this at the start, but I'm not a natural foodie. I have on my team the most incredible culinary director and COO who can taste a dish and tell you everything that's in it from that one spoonful. I grew up, my love was creating businesses. I was always hustling with something. You know, I didn't have any money, so I did the usual paper rounds and working in bars as sweeping up cigarettes in nightclubs and things. But I mean, my first ever little business was do you remember when you could write on CDs, a CD rewriter?
Yeah.
So I borrowed, it's an actual loan from my parents. I think it was about £150 or £200 to get this CD rewriter, and then I would go to HMV and I would get the latest album of something, and then I would basically burn CDs and sell them around the school for much cheaper, which is essentially piracy. So I'm not sure if that's I don't know. We must be part of. It was so many years ago. I'm probably fine.
There's an abstention after a number of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So no, I always had multiple little things like that. So, but my passion was always growing businesses, and that's what excited me. And when I got into the world of hospitality, I realized, there were a lot of really creative people wanting to do, creative chefs wanting to do amazing things, but didn't always have the business acumen or the systems, process structures as to how you actually make a success of these things or how to grow them. So that's where I started specializing and so I had the pleasure of traveling around the world, opening clubs and restaurants for 4.5 years. But during that, on the side of my day job, I would help early stage chefs, restaurateurs, just for a bit of fun.
Just people that you sort of met on that journey, and they asked for a bit of advice, and it sort of went from there. Was it quite casual?
Yeah, it started with have you ever heard of a restaurant group called Meat Liquor? But
Yes.
they kind of kicked off the better burger market.
Yeah.
And you had these founder Scott, who I'm a huge fan of Scott Collins, but he's a sort of big ZZ Top bearded, tattooed to the hilt, and I helped them raise some debt back in the day, because at the time you wouldn't put him in front of NatWest. And then they introduced me to lots of other people in the restaurant world. So I did it in exchange for a queue jump, because it was a 2-hour queue to get into Meat Liquor, and in exchange for a few free burgers. And I just built up this repertoire of restaurateurs that I had been helping, and it was very clear there was this niche for the support that I was providing. And the only other thing they always wanted was money. And so, I'd done my time at Soho House, and the desire was to go off and launch my own vehicle to open what started as restaurants and bars. So yeah, I went out to raise some money, because my side job, I was doing Soho House during the day, and nights and weekends I spent working on this as a side project. And actually, I'll do a slight spin off on this story. When I was raising the money, I was also looking at other jobs as well. And I had a job offer from Gordon Ramsay to be CFO of his business. And I had my initial kind of founder investors who were offering me some cash, and Gordon was pushing for me to sign the contract. And so I said to my investors, can you send me some money to make sure this is real and you're genuine, before we've signed the legal contracts? And they said, well, no, we need to sign the contract.
You need your signature first, yeah.
Yeah, which is totally fair. So I signed the deal with Gordon, and then 2 weeks later, and a few more emails back and forwards, I ended up having the money land in my account from my investors. So I had a single day where I had to call Nick Jones to resign from Soho House, and Gordon Ramsay to say, I'm really sorry, I know I've signed the employment contract, but I'm not going to take the job. And that was the start of my restaurant career. And I managed to piss off two of the most powerful people in the whole hospitality industry.
You decided you'd have a nice uphill challenge, did you, with those?
Exactly. Really kick off with a challenge.
God. I can imagine I can remember years ago when I first started my agency and I had to hand my notice in, and I agonised over the perfect day for about a month, and you really, it's such a weird thing, isn't it? Because it's not a bad thing. You just want to go and do something yourself for your next stage. But I think if you care, and obviously you've got some great experience, you talk a lot very positively about your time at Soho, don't you?
Oh, for sure. And I must say, everyone was actually very, very supportive and have been through my journey. So I'm
even Gordon.
Yeah, was absolutely charming. Surprisingly so. So yeah, I mean it makes for a nice story, but genuinely everyone was very supportive and got it. And you find that throughout the hospitality industry. It's a tough industry to make money in and to succeed and to grow. And so actually everyone is very kind along the way. So that was it at the start. I bought my laptop and
So then you were like, oh, bugger, that's it, we're off. Was he joking?
Well, so actually, I will say, Nick became very supportive afterwards, but I put out a press release that said, because I was a kid working at Soho House, and I put out a press release to get some kind of buzz about it, and I said, ex-commercial director of Soho House launches hospitality investment vehicle. And then I walked to Shoreditch House I bought my laptop and I was like, right, I'm going to start my company. And my membership card no longer worked. So it was a little bit of a slap on the wrist for, using our name in the press, which actually
A very
afterwards.
polite way of putting in your place, and yeah.
I'm back in now. It took me a bit of time, but I'm back as a member. So I started, and I spent 6 months eating at as many places as my body could stand, and we started with one little restaurant in Soho called Cricket, which is a sort of modern Indian concept, and it was two young guys in a shipping container in Brixton were cooking really interesting Indian food. So we started with that, and over the last 10 years, I've now built. I think we've opened about 70 restaurants and
Incredible.
one weird sauna party.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. That we'll keep that at the end to keep people listening about a communal sauna. Right?
Yeah.
The one thing we've not done very poorly, Chris, is actually say the name of your business.
Oh, sure. Well, it's called White Rabbit Projects.
Yeah.
Which is
And there's quite a nice story as to why it's called that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's one of those things when you're coming up with a name for a company, you never realize how big it's going to get. And so, it was when I was in my advisory days, and I had to put a name of what I was doing on this deck when I was doing advisory. And my grandparents only had one VHS videotape of the Alice in Wonderland cartoon when I was a kid, so they would just sort of sit me in front of that, and I can pretty much quote the whole of that cartoon. But later on in life, I got a very old copy of Alice in Wonderland, and I was sort of just scanning through it and saw a picture of the White Rabbit and thought, that's but
cool,
now it sort of feels it's not it doesn't feel corporate. It's memorable and seems to.
You could do some beautiful post-rationalization. It's about pulling a white rabbit out of a hat with success and all that.
There's definitely been some headlines used on that. And actually, we do have a restaurant in Oxford in a very grand old hotel called the Randolph that we called the Alice, and you'll see this sort of subtle kind of nods to the Alice in Wonderland story throughout the menu and things. So yeah, it's a fun one.
It's brilliant. Naming is, if a client comes to us and says, "Oh, I've got it. Can you come up with a name?" We're like, "Please no. Call
It's such hard.
Call it anything. We'll make it mean something, but don't ask us to come up with a name." Because everyone's got an opinion, haven't they? Oh, I don't think that. Oh, this means that here and.
For sure, we have one of our businesses is White Rabbit Hospitality, where we create bespoke developments for hotels and for landlords. So I think we have about 18 restaurants within just that part. And so we're constantly having to come up with names, and it's never the fun part.
We've all got ChatGPT now. We're fine.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Or at least the ones that you're not going to use. So tell me a bit about the business then. So obviously, you like you say, you're an incubator for you don't. Well, sorry, you might be. You don't actually come up with the. Yeah, I better ask you a question, haven't I?
Well, yes and no. So we are an incubator. So we both invest in and create restaurants. Right. But you're right. When we first started, it was ideas well beyond my station to create these things from scratch. And so my pitch was we would find a creative chef or a early stage restaurant. We would put in the money, and then this support platform of operations, HR, marketing, finance, culinary, creative and development to then launch and help grow these businesses. Over time, we've built up quite a lot of in-house expertise, so we now will create brands ourselves. We're never the front of it, but say for ARC, I found a lady in Canada who's got a PhD in neuroscience and is a sauna master and other things. So we will find a partner who will help create the products,
Yeah.
and then we sort of develop the rest of it.
Oh, so you'll always find, whether it's, like you say, culinary or the concept, you'll find a pure expert, and then
Exactly.
you bring all the commercial, the funding, and the operational side of it, then to make that dream happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool, isn't it? It's a really interesting marriage. So we were speaking earlier, and you don't describe yourself as a foodie, or you didn't describe yourself as a foodie, but I'm pretty sure you might have learnt quite a lot in the last 10 years with White Rabbit.
Yeah, and I do well for the last 10 years in White Rabbit, and if you
Oh, of
include
course, Soho as well,
Soho,
yeah.
and so 15 years eating for a living. Um, and I do go on these crazy sort of food inspiration tours. So, my biggest one was when we've just opened a very large scale development in Lisbon. And we went to Lisbon and I did 10 restaurants in the first day, 6 in the second day, 7 the day after that. And so within 3 days, you've eaten at all of the best restaurants in a city for working out what the competition's doing,
Yeah.
what's good, what's bad, where you should be sitting. I do the same. I go to New York every year. I'll just do 2 or 3 days of just eating to
That's
really understand
brilliant.
what's
You
happening.
say, sorry, darling, it's my job. I've got to go. Yeah.
Well,
Terrible.
actually, just there's a more difficult one where I had to sit in front of HMRC and explain why it was why me spending
Tax
£300.
deductible. Yeah.
Well, so for almost every business is not tax deductible, but I managed to convince them that it was after
Brilliant.
some tough conversations with someone who I guess may not have had quite as much fun in their job, but
Yeah.
I'd spent a lot of money in a restaurant in Miami, and I had gone on to build a multiple hotel restaurants that made a lot of money and paid a lot of tax. Um, but so I can claim that I had to go and eat at that restaurant in Miami because it was inspiration for the business that I built and is now giving HMRC a lot of money.
Brilliant. But it is. I'd love to have been the fly on the wall of that conversation. Because
Yeah, it wasn't
logically,
an
you can
easy one.
justify. No, I can't think that they might have had a slight agenda that you've got this what's swanning around doing all of that.
Yeah.
So, in terms of talk us through the range that you got now. So, you say you started with cricket, and then was Lena. You took over Lena because there was an existing Lena cafe, wasn't there? Lena
Yeah, the deli.
store. Yeah, sorry.
So,
Yeah,
so Lena stores had been around since 1944, the original deli,
cool.
and it was one which is this beautiful, beautiful part of Soho's history. Our office is next door, but when I worked at Soho House, I'd go there for meats and cheeses and definitely sort of Christmas gifting and things like that.
Yeah,
Um, and at the same time, I was seeing this sort of growth in the fresh pasta market, and I just approached them and said, "Have you ever thought about growing?" And I think they've been approached by lots and lots of different people, but I think because there's a genuine sort of sensitivity and care that we're not a typical investment vehicle. It is a group of hospitality experts with a lot of trying to develop and grow and bring these to more people. So yeah, essentially what happened is we put in money to open the first little pasta bar in Greek Street, and the owners put in the brand, and they're still very, very involved in the day-to-day business. In fact, I was drinking 20 cocktails with them last night in one of our
again,
bars.
tax deductible.
Tax deductible, yeah. That's business
Research,
development, research, yeah.
research, business development. It's all there.
Um, so we do tastings together. We argue about tile colors together. It's definitely very much a team sport. This, but we created that first little pasta bar in Greek Street, and we would make all the fresh pasta in the basement of the original deli and just cycle it across to the Greek Street sites. And now we've gone on to open, I think we have 14 Ninas now, and we also have 3 in Japan, so 2 in Tokyo, 1 in Kyoto. So yeah, lovely growth story, that one.
It's brilliant. Yeah, it's probably in terms of footprint, it's probably the biggest within the group, isn't it, in terms of numbers? And it's probably, like you say, obviously some in Japan, but also have you still got the Manchester Lina bar open, or Bar Lina open?
Yeah, so we've got a full service. It's actually our biggest restaurant, where we have restaurant, deli, and bar all in one site in Manchester. So that's the first move for Lina outside of London.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, ignoring Japan, which I'm sure that probably counts. But the first one in the UK, and although the regional cities do operate like a different country, it really is I guess the trading patterns are very different, and you have to be super sensitive to opening in these different.
Yeah, you can't just replicate, like you say, the intensity of population you have in London. We've had the guys on the podcast earlier who set up the Cellar Project.
Oh yes, yeah, great concept.
It's brilliant, isn't it? And like you say, but you go down to where their places are and you see people in January queuing out the door for a salad, and I can't imagine that happening in Leeds or Manchester. But that's where they're looking at next. But like you say, they've got to try and find a spot that replicates that place, which is never going to have the intensity, but it should work. We all like nice food, don't we? And we all like quality products, so hopefully.
Yeah, but that is exactly the challenge. So yes, there's so many you can do in London, unless I don't think any of our concepts are quite as like Gales or something. A huge fan of Gales, but I think we've got 180 or something mainly in London. But the real value add is, the value comes from the white space you can expand into. And so if you can prove a model that can do, Lina opened in Clapham, that's actually, it's quite a big step to say, can you do a neighbourhood version of this? And then beyond that, can you open in a Manchester? Because then it does open up the opportunity to do more. Because you don't want to oversaturate London. We don't really want to do too many more in central London. So can you go out to the regions? Can you go out into like the little smaller towns? And can you go international? So we've looked at New York. We've looked at the Middle East. Further in Asia, so open to all ideas.
Do you ever look to, like, in terms of expansion, do you ever look to them franchise a concept that you own, or are you always the owner-operator?
So it depends on the country. There are certain territories we have no expertise in operating in. It's such a different market that we would only go in via a local partner, like Japan. I loved visiting, but it is a totally different. It's been a fascinating journey opening there, but a totally different place. Whereas with Soho House, I've had experience of opening things in New York, or I think there's areas in Europe we would be comfortable building our own team and our own operations. But Middle East is an interesting one. It used to be you would only ever franchise there, but actually, I think there's opportunities to do joint ventures. And
I was about to say, I think that it's interesting. Again, we've had quite a few guests on in that world, and a lot of them have started with franchise, but once they've understood the market and realised partnerships is probably the way forward, when you look at a hotel group and then suddenly you realise they need great food and beverage within those hotels now, because it's such a competitive market out there, isn't it, that you could be quite smart.
Yeah, but also you do become one step removed through a franchise piece. Now you do need to adjust to local tastes and local trading, and So you need someone on the ground. It's the same in London. I've walked the streets for 15 years looking at what's working and what's not. So, for example, there's a Dean Street in Soho, one of the busiest streets in the whole of the UK. And there's one site which is in a super prime location and it changes hands every 9 months. It's just a cursed site. It's
Yeah.
where it is, it just will never work.
On paper, it should be perfect, but yeah.
And then, that's what happens is international people come in, they build a restaurant there, and 9 months later it's gone. The one opposite it has been there for, 35 years. So there is something to having someone on the ground in a country who has walked the streets and really understands the nuances of the properties, where to open, why people go there, why they don't cross the road, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? I love it. That's what makes the world great, though, isn't it? Because if it was straightforward, we'd all be retired by now.
Yeah.
So in terms of, as you look, have you got like a set criteria of what you look for when you come up with a new concept? Is there like a checklist that you'll always go through, or is it the person sometimes that you'll invest in?
You know what? I would love to say that there's some grand kind of formal.
With your clipboard and you go through.
Yeah. Honestly, it's gut feel. But I really should, considering I've been doing this as a career for quite a long time, that I should have more of a plan than vibe based. But it is. Yeah. Ultimately, the quality of the product has to be exceptional. Management teams and people behind it. There is a level of hunger and obsession that is required to give startup businesses the momentum to get them through all the chaos and disasters that they 100% will face, and then an ability to actually scale these concepts and knowing that there's different ways you can scale, and that can be through different revenue streams or different geographical locations. But so yeah, product, people, and scale are the things that we look for. But ultimately, it's now hopefully some experience. But I've got things wrong before, I'll get them wrong again.
Well, I think that's it. But it's interesting you talk about gut, because people do. I've met lots of the guests now and they've talked about it. And for me, when you listen, I've had this lovely, sort of meeting about 60, 70 people now and recording these things. What I think gut is your collective experience. And we sort of were dismissive of it as if it's got to be like, I mean, you've come from a finance background, so are you Mr. Numbers crunching it? But that will be in your gut as well, if that makes sense. You will be looking at that, and it's that skill is to bring it together, isn't it?
I think that's why the luck I've had is in my career, I started in the corporate finance world, which was the structure and process and the numbers of how do you scale a business. But the private equity world also historically has screwed up a lot of businesses in the past.
Yeah.
But then I worked at Soho House and I had half of that beaten out of me by Nick, where it was just an obsession with customer experience. And that was all that was cared about was when you're sitting on a banquette in a restaurant and you put your arm up, is the banquette, does it finish there so it's really comfortable where it is? You'll now, when you go into a restaurant and you see banquettes up this high, you'll realize that's someone who has no idea about how to design a restaurant. And it's those little touches, the weight of cutlery, the height of table.
Yeah.
All of those things, you won't notice why the restaurant feels right. But it's those bits of obsession which an experience which I'm lucky not to have just come from the finance world going, let's scale this.
So you've inherited that from Nick then, and just realised, do you walk into a restaurant now and just say, oh my word, what have they done?
Every single time. I can't go.
We have to go out for dinner. I have to see a restaurant through your eyes.
I talk about banquettes way too much. I'll sit in a restaurant and you've done it as well. The table's up here and you're like this with your cutlery. this
You
is,
feel uncomfortable. Yeah, it's just weird, isn't it? However good the food is, then after that,
yeah. So
I'm,
no,
I'm not,
it's a busman's holiday. If I want an actual good experience, there's safe places that I go to that I just like. You know, I know.
that your partner doesn't have to stroke your forehead just to calm you down when you're in there. Right, we're safe. He's all right. He's in his happy place here.
Well, that actually no. The rule is not at my restaurants
Yeah,
because you cannot concentrate. Or if I am, I have to face away from the the main room
yeah.
because you're just looking around going, why have they got an empty glass? Why is that person not? You know. So,
But I love it. But that passion that comes through, and it's interesting what you said about. I think probably know the answer to this, but when you find someone, see, like the two lads that were doing cricket originally,
mhm.
you, it sounds like you're brutally honest with them. That you're saying, look, we're not here to wave a magic wand. We're here to roll our sleeves up together. We've got our skills, you've got your skills, but there's no shortcut to this. It's just graft. It's just go for it. And
Yeah,
it,
it really is, and yeah, there are much easier ways to make money than restaurants, and um, yeah, I think we've seen over the last 5 more years. There's a disaster every single year,
yeah,
be it COVID or Brexit or yeah, the massive inflation,
national
recent
insurance. Come on, we've got
recent
to say
budget
it.
changes, which I could talk about the joys of the governmental support at the moment. But so you have to be. I mean, you have to have a pretty intense work ethic, and balance is an interesting uh, topic that I've not always. I'm not sure I entirely believe in myself. If you want to do big things, if you have grand ideas,
I think
um,
there's no shortcuts like you've said to successes. Unfortunately, I think people they look at you now as a successful businessman, and like you say, the war stories that you've got that we don't need to go into today are what's made you, though, isn't it? It's made you now realise when you do the next concept how you'll make it work.
yeah, there's an interesting. I can't remember there's a podcast I'm listening to at the moment, and the guy was talking about um, you sort of meet founders and they all talk about, well, I like to balance and I spend the morning reading and all the rest of it. It's the rise, not the results is the statement. And actually the rise is, yeah, I worked 7 days a week and I hustled and you make decisions that not everyone else is going to make
Yeah,
the first 5 years, I did not have a normal existence,
yeah,
or what society would call a normal
yeah.
existence. But my God, I loved it.
I was about to say,
I,
your face then, if you're not watching the video, your face just lit up when you said those 5 years. Like you say, probably to most people that was hell, but you like, I loved it. I was in it.
um, yeah, I mean, there's a phrase that has stuck with me of pressure is a privilege, and I'm incredibly lucky that, that sometimes I get into those. Uh, you go through these incredibly hard times, and that's also why I get to do incredible things. And I started with one tiny restaurant in Soho, and now you know I've been given 30,000 square foot in Lisbon and the ability to hire 200 people in a country I've never operated in, and work with incredible chefs. And yeah, I guess I'm so happy that I wouldn't wish it. The statement goes, I'm very happy to be able to do these things. It's incredible. And younger me is going, this is insane what you're doing. Um, and I love it, but I would not wish it on my worst enemies.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's
The
you, and unless you've ever run your own thing of any scale, you just don't get that, do you? You just you know you know if you know, don't you? Sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. The things that I get annoyed about now. So long story short, someone lost me 500,000 quid by a bad decision within the business. Um, but it wasn't. that and sort of someone else was asking me, "God, you must be furious." I was like, "No, I mean that's the game we play.
Yeah,
You roll the dice, you
you're
get some
gambling,
things
aren't
right,
you? Yeah, yeah,
something's right, something's wrong." And but if I'm in a restaurant and someone and the person, the runner dropping the plates off doesn't smile, that really pisses me off. Like that is we're in hospitality.
yeah.
That's the sort of extreme ownership of saying, if there's no toilet rolls in the
Yeah.
toilet, me as CEO of a business, I haven't put in place the right systems, structure, people to offer
Okay.
those basic things in a restaurant. So, but I'm paying hundreds of thousands of pounds to people to make sure there's a toilet roll in a toilet. So that's more annoying to me than losing £500,000
Yeah,
a poor decision.
you've made, like you say, you've made peace with that. Whereas that you can control because
Yes,
there's
exactly.
something has broken there, hasn't it? Rather than just a
Yeah.
bit of bad luck. So you obviously within the group you've also got hotels, haven't you? And how's that been different from the restaurants?
Yeah, well, it's hotel restaurants. We are actually working on our first one where we will run the rooms. So that's a
Ah, okay. So
work
you
in
run
progress.
the F&B sort of thing of those hotels that you're in the group. Then is that right?
Yeah, so we do the food, beverage, and event spaces. They are very different beasts because obviously you're doing hundreds of people for breakfast every morning. Um, you're doing very large banqueting, and so a you can have these incredible creative chefs that do beautiful, beautiful pieces of art on a plate, and then to do 300 people for breakfast in a 2 hour window
Yeah.
is a different skill set. So there's been lots of learnings and working with hoteliers who are a different, very different group of people, different sort of training to running a restaurant. So learnings, but I think it's such the hotel world has woken up to this, but hoteliers typically, not all of them, but do not know how to run restaurants,
Yeah.
and they will design a restaurant starting with a breakfast buffet, and as soon as you've built it for a breakfast buffet, no one wants to go there for lunch or dinner.
Yeah. It's
Um,
interesting, isn't it? Do you think they've been a little bit lazy because they've got a captive audience to a degree? They think, oh, right, just put a bit of food on and be fine, sort of thing.
um, yes and no. I wouldn't always say. I think what it is breakfast is the thing that it's the last thing you experience before you leave a hotel. So everyone reviews you could stay there for a week, and the
Okay,
thing they
yeah.
review you on is your
Is that
breakfast.
last exit? Yeah.
So it is super important to get it right. Um, but then what happens is you at all costs try and make that good, and then no one ever wants to sit in there in for lunch or dinner. So I guess part of our expertise now is going, how do you design a destination restaurant and bar for the outside world and for the clientele in the hotel, but then make it also work for a hotel, for
Interesting.
breakfast and for banqueting. And I've made massive mistakes getting to where I think we are now. The likes of, yeah, we had a phenomenal chef in our restaurant in Cambridge in what's now a Hilton Hotel, um, because he was doing such beautiful food, and we had even quite weird but interesting things like mushroom ice cream and other stuff. Um, but actually, if you're traveling for work, you just want a burger. You just want there's sort of simple
Yeah,
staples, and I think
yeah.
the learnings of not being too clever and doing elevated and doing certain things that are interesting, but you've got a more simple palette, which is where I approach
Interesting.
things at from not being a
Yeah.
classic foodie.
So for you, they get a menu for you, Chris. That's fine.
Exactly, I'm the average Joe.
Give
It's
me the
yeah,
burger. Give me the burger. So,
exactly.
so you said, but so you're just moving into doing a concept the way you've got the rooms as well. So you fancy stretching your learnings again.
Yeah, so I mean, this one it actually tips more into our wellness side. We're kind of deep in the legal negotiations at the moment, but it's multiple floors of food, beverage, and wellness. So sort of contrast
Wow.
therapy, movement, but I'm also setting it up. The ideal is it's a very, very clear wave of what's coming in the obsession with health and wellness, and that is the new social currency. Um, but things like, you know, peptide bars, and I mean, it's incredible what's coming and what you can do to your body. Uh, so yeah, I'm just exploring that world a bit more, and there's a similarity to what I've created in the hospitality world, um, applying it to health and wellness, and
Yeah.
going, well, actually, there's a lot of creative, good people trying to do good things, but how do you then actually provide that service to the masses? And yeah,
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's the same concept. Like you say, most go back against the two guys that were doing cricket. Probably very creative, very
yep.
good at what they did, but not necessarily that transfers that they're good businessmen or understanding their audience. They just go, look, we're
Or
fabulous at cooking food and we understand what they want.
yeah, or maybe just even sort of young and new, and so
Yeah,
just hadn't gone through the learnings, and
yeah,
when we're there to provide that support, the leg up to kick things on, and you know they still run that business on a day-to-day basis, and we're there to support. And you know, I work on the international development side. We've just signed a deal to open in the Middle East for them, which will open in March.
brilliant.
So yeah, we
But like
just
that's it. So, but now you're finding that, like you say, with the wellness trend, that there are people who understand the product, but
yep.
like have no ideas how to either, not necessarily like to your point, not no ideas, but have never needed to commercialize it, have never needed to put it on the scale, and that's what you can bring.
Well, this I think there's a whole world of if you pay through the nose, you can get access to great health and wellness stuff in London. But for someone like Alana who's my partner in ARC, you know, the learnings around the health benefits of contrast therapy and things, actually to then go and find a property in London, convince a landlord it's a good idea to open a
So
65
yeah,
person
so you,
sauna with a
I was
load of
about to
ice
say,
baths. There's an art to the selling of that, which was a journey. Then to spend 2 million quid on a sauna, or on building this thing. Then you've got the marketing, the operations, there's a whole skill set of other things, and I guess my one skill is just dragging the right group of people into a room and putting enough momentum behind them to make something happen.
start knitting together, like you say, of all the elements of. But it's fun. It's really interesting listening to you because you seem to have an absolute passion and focus in understanding the experience that the customer will have and nearly working backwards from that, if that makes sense, to make sure it's delivered correctly.
It's I would say 90% of what I talk about is what does that do for the customer? Or yeah, it's ultimately that's what you're or who you're serving.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you know, I do as a personal mantra of grow and serve, and you you've got to you've got to think about, okay, well, we do a lot of sitting in front of the plans before we start a build and going, right, imagine walking the journey of the customer.
yeah.
What am I picking up? What am I putting
What are they
down?
hitting? Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Um, and in a restaurant, that's easy because I've done it a
yeah,
hundred times
yeah,
before. When you're thinking about a wellness space, you start from scratch, which actually is quite a fun journey of going, right, okay, well, I've got a vanity unit of people drying their hair, and you know, if they want mouthwash, and if they want, where do you put all these things? A really bizarre one. We've got communal changing rooms in ARC, which I thought I was going to get torn apart in the press for. But we have had not even a single comment from customers about it.
fabulous.
So
Because it
lots
just
of
Just explain a little bit very quickly, because as
Sure.
usual, we're running out of time. Because ARC is fascinating. Make sure, because it's a contrast therapy, but a communal contrast therapy. Is that right?
Correct. So we built the largest sauna in the UK by a long way. So it's a 65 person sauna. Um, then we have 8 2-person ice baths and a big communal kind of room. And you can use it in 2 ways. So we have facilitators who run it like a class, and you'll walk in, and in the sauna you'll do breath work and stretching and movement, and some classes to get you uplifted and some a bit more calming. So you'll do all this in the sauna, and then you'll jump into a 2-degree ice bath for 2 minutes, and you do a couple of rounds of that, and you come out feeling pretty incredible. Um, or on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, we put a DJ in the space, and
In the
you
sauna.
have so it's in the communal room outside, but they play into the sauna, and we
I
have
love
100
it.
people going through with non-alcoholic cocktails, and you get a real natural high just from going through the extreme heat and the extreme cold. And it's just it's a way of kind of socializing, going out partying without borrowing happiness from tomorrow.
I like that. That's awesome.
It's
And I
fun.
bet
You have to
you,
come down.
I'm going to say, and I bet when you were, leaving Manchester University all those years ago, the last thing you thought you'd ever do was it's
I
just,
own the biggest sauna in the UK, which is
I
definitely
mean,
not
that's
my.
it. Chris, mate, you've got to retire now. It's not going to get better than that. That's going to
Oh, I
be the
don't know. I've
future.
got I've got weirder and wilder plans to
Brilliant.
to, to do in the future. Don't you worry about that.
Right then. So part 2 coming up next year, then I'll look forward to it.
Yeah.
So look, one
Yeah.
last question, Chris, because we have run out of time and you've got a busy day ahead of you. Is that it's always nice, a bit of reflection. There's just an incredible
Mm.
story. You must be so proud. But is there something you'd say to young Chris, either leaving uni or maybe leaving Soho House? A piece of advice that you think, oh, if I'd had that I might have made the journey a little bit easier. Is there anything that stands out for you?
Um, so I think the simple advice is or like keep pulling the thread,
Okay.
um, and and put in the hours. And I think the the pulling the thread bit is around just the curiosity of just following those paths of things that interest you, that takes you to a place that is um, that just sort of excites you because you've got to be excited by this stuff.
Yeah.
So keep and along the way you do question yourself when you are doing those late nights and putting in all the hours as to is this worth it, uh, and actually I'm very future me from past me I think is very happy with what uh, with having taken those tough decisions, because I'm getting to do such fun things today that I'm glad I kind of chose to work those extra late nights rather than uh, uh, yeah. I've had fun along the way, but
I can say I think that's it, isn't it? In life, there's a wider lesson that in this current world that's presented so perfectly to my children and to
Mm.
younger people, there are no shortcuts to what success looks like. Yeah, and I know they think it is because they go on a reality show and that's it, but it's not, is it?
yeah,
True success
uh,
comes from hard work.
for sure. So I have no problem with saying, there's a period of time where I'm going to work crazy hours to get something done. And then physically, I do need to take a week off, or I need to go and, balance it out. And if my body says, okay, Friday, you need to, wake up late and just go to the gym and move
Yeah.
your body rather than just so that your mind can make the right decisions, you've got to do those things as well. But I don't think this sort of, no, every day you have to finish work at 5:30 and God,
That'd
this
be boring, wouldn't
it'd be very boring. But this is me. It's not for everyone.
it? Exactly. Yes, but be careful because I think I'm biased towards you. Chris, that's been brilliant, mate. Thank you so much. And I think
It's been
I've obviously in my research
great to chat.
looked up at Arc. You've got to go see it. It looks incredible.
Well,
Is it
thank you.
Canary Wharf? Is it out at Canary Wharf?
Canary Wharf, yes. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
We'll we'll put some links on the podcast, but that's great. And then good luck with the exciting new chapters that we'll hear about on the next episode.
Right. Thanks, Steve. Good to chat.
Cheers, Chris.